Hello and welcome back to the Red Path. Today we're going to continue looking at the fight phase and how to get the most from it with the different types of movement available. Last week's video focused on figuring out the order of operations in the fight phase and trying to clarify some of the mechanics that manage it. Today we're looking at perhaps the World Eater's greatest asset, movement in the fight phase. Unfortunately, we don't have access to many good buffs to movement anywhere else, outside of Apoplectic Frenzy and some minor charge buffs, but due to Blood for the Blood God, Fury of Khorne and the Battle Lust Warlord trait, we do have access to great mobility in the fight phase. Whilst I'm sure all of you are aware of these abilities, I'll give a quick summary for those newer to World Eaters, or who may otherwise be unaware. Blood for the Blood God allows units the ability to fight twice, Khorne Berserkers, Khan, and if a Terminator unit is upgraded to Red Butchers. What this means is that the standard 3-inch pile-in and 3-inch consolidation occurs twice, doubling our effective threat range. Fury of Khorne grants one unit the ability to fight again, so on a unit with Blood for the Blood God is yet another 6 inches of potential movement. Battle Lust is a Warlord trait that provides the Always Fights First ability, which is great, but also a 6-inch heroic intervention, which is stellar. Before we get to these in depth though, I want to mention a useful play that is worth remembering. Disembarking has changed slightly in 9th edition. Now, when a unit disembarks, whether through choice or because of destroyed transport, it must disembark wholly within 3 inches. This is a slight debuff compared to 8th, which only required within, essentially meaning as long as the tiniest part of a model's base was within 3 inches of the transport, it had disembarked, allowing an effective additional inch of free movement, and an easier time being able to deploy outside of engagement range of any nearby enemy models. However, there is a new core stratagem, Emergency Disembarkation for 1 CP, which allows a 6-inch disembark, following the wholly within ruling, but models are slain on a 1 or a 2, as opposed to a 1. So technically, if 10 models use this to escape a destroyed transport, 3 will statistically die instead of 1.5. Whilst this appears expensive, it is something to consider. If your vehicle is surrounded, you may well have to destroy that amount anyway to be able to fully disembark. This happened to me a couple of times in 8th edition. But moreover, imagine the situation where your opponent has just fired some of their last shots that can meaningfully harm your units, and they have a tank or other non-melee focused model around 18 inches away from the transport. Your unit of 10 Berserkers can either disembark normally 3 inches, take 1 or 2 casualties, then on your turn move 6 inches and have a 9-inch charge to this enemy target. Or you can spend 1 CP and mathematically sacrifice 3 Berserkers, disembark 6 inches, move 6 inches, and have a 6-inch charge, which is an improvement from 27.8% to 72.2% success rate. It's definitely a stratagem to keep in the back of your mind when playing, as our transports are often high value targets for opponents. Rhinos carrying Berserkers not only are fairly soft targets that give up solid secondary points, but no one wants Berserkers closer to their lines. Anyway, so let's get back to the best part of the game, the fight phase. When a unit successfully charges, it moves so at least one model in the unit is within engagement range of the target or targets. It does not have to be base to base, but must be within an inch of a targeted model. So it's worth noting that even if you only need a 3-inch charge, you can move the entire distance of your roll. So if you rolled a 7, you could perhaps move around the back or side of the model closer to an objective or a low threat model you want to consolidate into. Always remember to use every inch of your charge distance if it helps you. Once a unit is engaged and selected to fight, it may pile in up to 3 inches toward the closest model, and here's how to squeeze efficiency from this. If your unit of 10 Berserkers charges a guard squad that doesn't particularly need to die but was the easiest charge, and there are 2 Leman Russ tanks flanking it, that it would be beneficial for you to tag. That is, to force their firepower at the Berserkers and not at another primary target, for example. Only declare the guard squad as a target unless other units are equidistant. Move your models so at least one is within engagement range of the guard, and whilst maintaining coherency, move other models so they are less than 4 inches from either tank. When you select your Berserkers to fight, you may pile into the closest enemy model, and assuming coherency is kept, the Berserkers may tag the Leman Russ models. Sure, they won't be able to fight them and you're sacrificing killing power, though honestly, 1 or 2 Berserkers will make mincemeat of a guard squad anyway. But you are reducing your opponent's shooting phase immensely, even if sacrificing your Berserkers. The second way to effectively use pile-ins is when planning to gain ground. Let's take the guardsman again. We know that 3 berserkers with axe and sword with absolutely no buffs can remove a squad of 10 guard in one fight activation. So let's assume a situation where a target guard squad is 1 inches away, and a squad of Bullgrin are 6 inches away, beyond the guard. You want to destroy both and only have the 1 squad of berserkers to deal with them. You know your first charge is guaranteed, and the 6-inch charge is highly likely, so you declare both, and you roll a 6. Exactly what you need to succeed. Use your charge move to position as effectively as possible to be between both targets, then, where possible, use the first activation to pile in as close as possible, again maintaining coherency to targets, preferably with 3 berserkers to deal with the guard and the others as close as possible to the Bullgrin. As predicted, the first activation will eviscerate the guard, allowing a 3-inch consolidation move, which he should have prepared to be directed toward the Bullgrin. Now, assuming no interruptions, you select the unit to attack for the second time, and utilise its 3-inch pile-in move, moving as many as possible to be within engagement range of the Bullgrin, and attack and destroy them. Once the Bullgrin are eliminated, you may choose to use your second consolidate to move towards the closest enemy model, wherever it may be. Remember, move closer to does not mean in a straight line. If the nearest enemy model is 6 inches north, but an objective you want to secure is 3 inches west, as long as any model that does consolidate, or pile in for that matter, ends its movement 5.99999 inches or less away from the closest model, it is a legitimate move. Thus you could move 3 inches west and 1 inch north, secure the objective and fulfill the obligations of the rule. But let's just say that the nearest enemy model is 24 inches away due north and a critical objective is 8 inches away, also due north, between you and the nearest enemy. And you've just slain the last model in a unit as part of your second Blood for the Blood God activation. Do you have 3 CP? I hope so. Use your consolidation for the second Blood for the Blood God to move 3 inches towards that nearest enemy model, due north. Then, at the end of the fight phase, play Fury of Khorne and pile in 3 inches towards the nearest enemy model and go through the fight order of operations, of which there are none here because you're not in engagement range. Then consolidate another 3 inches towards the enemy, landing you on the desired objective, potentially scoring you a game-swinging amount of points. The highlights of piling in and consolidating are as follows. If utilising, a model must end its pile in or consolidate move nearer to the closest enemy model. This just means 0.00000001 inch closer. It may move 3 inches in any direction as long as it ends nearer to the closest enemy model. As long as you began the fight phase, yours or your opponent's, within engagement range and or having made a charge move, your unit counts as an eligible unit and can be selected for Fury of Khorne. It is easier to utilise in your own fight phase, but it is possible in your opponent's. You do not need to actually fight in any of your 2 and potentially 3 fight activations with berserkers, though you will need to qualify as eligible, preferably via charging. With 3 CP you can get 18 inches of movement with a squad of berserkers in the fight phase, but that's the equivalent of a 4-move mate in chess. Possible but unlikely. Better to understand the mechanics so you can better utilise the movement for capturing objectives, tagging enemy units, or move blocking, and so on. Okay, so now let's have a look at heroic interventions. In my opinion, heroic interventions should be one of the World Eater's primary mechanics. Not because we're particularly heroic, but because it fits the fluff of lone warriors careering headlong into individual combat. In case you're not too familiar with it, the heroic intervention is a special type of charge phase movement afforded to units with the character keyword. At the end of your opponent's charge phase, any character you have that is not within engagement range and is within 3 inches of an enemy model may heroically intervene and fight that unit it engages with, and best of all, they can't fight back, at least under normal rules, though some caveats exist. Some armies, such as Custodies and Space Wolves, get awesome buffs to this ability, which really elevate those armies. The World Eaters get one such boon, the Warlord trait Battlelust, which, as stated previously, applies the Fight First rule, and a 6-inch heroic intervention. As I've discussed in other videos, this trait coupled with Red Butchers on a Terminator Lord makes a very fun HQ for us, and here's why. In your opponent's fight phase, they are forced to make a tough choice. If you have positioned your Warlord well, they'll be within 6 inches of critical enemy units, preferably non-fighter units. Your opponent will either be competent or incompetent. An incompetent opponent will either ignore your Lord, which is great, or charge your Lord, which is also great. A competent opponent will have the same choice, but they will likely sacrifice a low-value unit to stymie the Lord. If they do not, which they may not be able to, at the end of your opponent's charge phase you may declare interventions, and your Lord has a 6-inch threat bubble, which is actually a circle with a 13.5-inch diameter. So your Lord suddenly has free reign to move towards a target 6 inches away. And if you have Red Butchers, guess what? Let's say that target is a tank. You move 6 inches toward it and get just within an inch. You use your 3-inch pile-in to circle around, then you kill it. Then you consolidate 3 inches towards the nearest enemy model. Then blood for the blood god kicks in. Guess what? You began the fight phase within engagement range, so you're an eligible unit. So then you pile in 3 inches towards that nearest enemy unit. Oh no, you say, you didn't declare it as a charge, so you're stuck. Nuh-uh. This is your opponent's fight phase. You began eligible and also untargeted. You can fight anything you can reach without declaring it and kill it. So you kill their warlord on your blood for the blood god activation, because why the heck not? Oh yeah, it's still your opponent's fight phase. So shortly it will be your command phase, and there's an objective 4 inches north of your warlord in the 4th quadrant of the battlefield. So by spending 3 CP to move there with Fury of Khorne, you can capture an objective and turn a 10-point primary into a 15-point primary, and be ready for maxing out engage on all fronts for the turn for another 3 VP. Now look, movement shenanigans aren't things you can capitalise on or exploit in every game. A canny opponent will know World Eater's potential and use screening and move blocking to reduce our effectiveness. Nevertheless, it's important to know the tricks and plays we have available to us, because as I keep preaching, 9th edition is all about the mission, and mobility is key to winning that mission. So sure, putting out 60 attacks on a 100-point unit is fun as shit, but moving up to 18 inches with that unit in your opponent's turn is just goddamn glorious. Alright folks, that's the end of this one. I hope I've shed some light on maximising movement in the fight phase for you, and I hope it helps you claim some skulls for the Skull Throne in upcoming battles. Until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, have a happy holiday season, and kill, maim, burn.